Tokenisation. Real world assets, real move, real place. RWA Western Australian Regional Hub. Open the door, let value take shape. Brick by brick, we build it right. Simple access, clear daylight. New ground now, watch it rise. Local and to global life. Let's talk real estate, tokenisation. Let's talk real estate, tokenisation. Powered by Blocksquare. Powered by Blocksquare.
Okay, I managed the recording. And Karoline just came here in time as well.
Just like a wizard, right? Never late, never early, only on time.
Just on the minute.
Cool.
Karoline.
Thanks, Caroline.
Okay, Caroline, you want to do a mic test, mate? If you are doing a mic test, we cannot hear you.
You are on mute, Caroline.
Oh, that whole time I'm on mute. Sorry about
Yes.
that, everyone. Hi,
Now
I'm
we can
Caroline.
hear you.
Sorry, I hadn't registered for this event, so I didn't have the Google Meet link. And sorry, I was late. And then sorry, I was on mute. Sorry, I'm a bit late today.
Yeah.
All good.
Okay.
That's all right, mate. What we
Welcome, everyone.
what we focus on in this community is professionalism. Brilliant.
Everyone is laughing.
Right. Cool. All right. Well, I'm going to kick things off then. I'll just move that over here, move that over there. So I'm actually looking at it and then I'll change it. So, all right. Okay, cool. All right. We'll just start off. My name's Brandon. I'm the CEO of Orange Brick Road. We're a crypto education business. For everything in crypto. I've been in since 2016, so I've seen a lot of things come and go, and some things stick and some things not. I will be your moderator tonight, which is scary if you know me personally, but I will do my best. I do generally do a lot of interviews on my podcast, but also I've got a crypto radio show, so I'm familiar with trying to coordinate, and get cats all to go into the same direction, if you know what I mean. Okay, so anyways, what we'll be talking about tonight is real world tokenization, hence the title, Let's Talk Real World Tokenization. Okay, when people hear the term tokenization, many people think of just cryptocurrency, but the conversation has evolved significantly. Good. Today we're seeing things like central banks, regulators, investment managers, property companies. They're talking of tokenizing the stock exchange. So it's not just real estate. Also, mine sites are looking at doing it, vineyards, all manner of stuff. I think going forward, there will be just about everything will be tokenized or put on the blockchain in one. So what I'd really like to see is on a blockchain is government people that go for positions and stuff like that to see where they get the funding from so everyone can see it, but that's probably not going to happen. It's just my little dream. Okay, moving right along. Today, we're now sort of participating in this conversation through initiatives such as Project Acacia, which has brought together industries, regulators and financial institutions to explore tokenized asset and digital money. Tonight, we're going to discuss where Australia stands today, what opportunities exist, what challenges remain, because there are challenges, everything, especially with new technology, is not just up and to the right and everything goes smooth. There will be crinks that need to be sorted out along the way, and see what the future looks like with assets across real estate, funds, financial markets, and beyond. The speakers today are going to be Karoline Kolman, is a regional hub chair. JellyC, I should have learned your last name before I started this. Cornelup. Did I get that right, JellyC? Pretty close? Thanks, brother.
Yeah, you're improving. It's significant improvement.
I'm not speaker. I will be answering the question maybe if someone asks.
All right, fantastic. Okay, and Yasik is from Spectrum Labs and a Blocksquare ambassador. Then we got Minnie Reynolds. Okay, she's a Blocksquare business developer, Blocksquare business development team APAC, which I don't know what that stands for. Australian Pacific, Australian Central. There you go. That's what it stands for. Real estate agent. She's also a real estate agent, accountant, and educator, and a bit of a legend. And then we've got Julia Buchholz. I'm really good at this. She's a CMO of Blocksquare and APAC as well, marketing expert. Also joining us tonight is Sandra Fajardo. Sandra joins us from JellyC Digital Asset Management, where she works at the forefront of digital asset tokenization and investment innovation. JellyC has been actively involved in helping bridging traditional finance and emerging digital asset markets, giving Sandra valuable insight into institutional adoption and the future of digital investment. Okay, also joining us, that coffee's so strong, I'm drying out my mouth just talking. Okay, is Mike. Mike is a researcher at Curtin University, specializing in blockchain technology, taxation, BOO, and digital innovation. Okay, and then introduce yourself. I've already done that, so that's how efficient I am. Okay, cool. So first up, with Karoline. Before we begin, I'd just like to invite you to briefly introduce the Regional Hub Perth and share some recent developments you've been seeing both locally and globally in the digital asset and tokenization ecosystem.
Okay, great. Thanks, Brandon, for your warm introduction, and welcome everyone. But yeah, the RWA stands for Real World Assets. And what are real world assets? Well, they vary from treasuries and bonds to real estate and even intellectual property. And we're specifically, Blocksquare is focusing on real estate tokenization. So I'm the chair of the Real World Asset Regional Hub in Perth. And sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. Yeah, so we have monthly meetups for education and to bring the local community together to look into real world assets and real estate and the tokenization of these assets and you know, where it's at. And so that's what we're here for. And what's happening recently is that the institutional TradFi are becoming interested in this blockchain technology and sort of how it can connect, and especially in you know, some markets around the world, there's some interest in tokenizing funds and treasuries and bonds and other sorts of assets, and it's actually a growing you know, market for these. I've wrote an article recently, which is like where real estate tokenization stands in 2026 and why the opportunity is just beginning. And in there was a table that I shared with the real estate asset class having over 8% share of the current tokenization activity, with an asset class market value of over 1.4 trillion and a base case estimated tokenization by 2030 of 330 billion. That's been put into a report by the Digital Finance Cooperative Research Centre. If you want to read my article, if you want to follow me on LinkedIn, my article has been posted there. But also I wanted to mention that, excuse me, that Blocksquare is currently a finalist for the Signet West PropTech Awards for 2026 in a lot of categories. So I just wanted to mention that because part of the Perth Regional Hub and having sort of close working relationship with the PropTech Hub of WA, I think it's important to highlight sort of the work that we've been doing locally in Western Australia. So Blocksquare is up for Emerging Innovation of the Year 2026, for Global Go-Getter of the Year 2026, for Cyber Safe Innovator of the Year 2026, and for the PropTech Hub WA Members' Choice of the Year 2026. Also, Jacek Kornelak, Ambassador for Blocksquare and founder of Spectrum Lab Pty Ltd, is also Champion of PropTech WA 2026 and finalist, and champion, and Julia Buchholz is on the call also, is Champion of Champions of Western Australia finalist for 2026. So yeah, round of applause for everyone. Yeah, I also wanted to mention, I'm not sure if this is the right time to mention that there's going to be some RWA, like real world asset events in the APAC region, which is Asia Pacific, and in 2026. And so one of them's being Tokenised Malaysia, which is on the 30th of July, Tokenised Bali, which is on the 20th of August, and Tokenised Korea, which is in September, the 28th of September. There's also in October from the 5th to the 9th, there's going to be the RWA week in Singapore, which is part of the Deal Flow, which is Tokenised RWA Summit. And then also the Deal Flow in Hong Kong is going to be on the 3rd of November. And Tokenised UAE, which is in Abu Dhabi, will be on the 7th of December, 2026. I think that's all I've got.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for that, Caroline. If you can put them links or details or some sort of contact in chat so people can, especially with that article that you're talking about,
Yeah,
that would be good. And just a final note on that, Julia being, the champion of champions, it's just come through on a news bulletin on my computer that I've been voted the champion of champions of champions. So there you go. All right, so moving on. Why is Australia exploring tokenisation? I'm going to throw this to Sandra. Sandra, Australia has just completed Project Acacia, bringing together regulators, financial institutions and industry participants to explore tokenised assets and digital money. For those that are unfamiliar with the project, what was Project Acacia trying to achieve and why should Australia care? Sorry, that's actually a question. Sorry about that, Sandra. For those unfamiliar with the project, Sandra, what was Project Acacia trying to achieve and why should Australians care?
Yeah, thank you, Brendan. So basically, Project Acacia is a research project that is led by the Reserve Bank of Australia and the DFCRC, so the Digital Finance Cooperative Research Center. And it has been supported by the regulators, which are ASIC, APRA, AUSTRAC, and the Treasury. The main goal was to test whether the tokenized assets and the digital money could improve Australia's wholesale financial markets in practice, not just theory. And that's why it put 20 use cases, which were built and tested by real industry participants across different asset classes. It was used a pilot wholesale CBDC, stablecoin, and bank deposit tokens on live blockchain. 12 of those were involved. It was involved real money and real transactions. And JellyC was part of a couple of the use cases. And why Australians should care? I think that simply because a large part of the Australian financial system is still running on older infrastructure, and that means delayed settlement, manual processes, and fragmented registries. So therefore, the tokenization has the potential to modernize that, making markets more efficient, involving improving liquidity and lowering the cost of the capital. So this will affect everything from the funds operate, but any other tokenization of any real world asset, and how this will flow through the economy.
Okay, nice. So by participating in that, like, what was the biggest lesson? Like, what did you take away from participating in it?
Well, I think that the biggest lesson it was that, or it is that the technology works. So we are not waiting on the capability anymore. Through the work that was made at JellyC, together with the trust that Staff Capital and Macropod, stablecoin issuer, we saw the full transaction cycle happening, including the issuance of the stablecoin and the secondary trading, that it happened in minutes rather than that would be normally in days. With that transaction we already proved that assets can be issued on chain, that settlement can happen instantly using something like AUDM, the Macropod stablecoin, and that the compliance can be embedded directly into the transaction flow. So basically, remaining barriers are the legal clarity, the infrastructure interoperability, and the industry coordination, which is something that Australia, post Acacia reform agenda, is now targeting.
Okay, well, was this like mainly theory? Is there any sort of use cases exploring within the sandbox of real live working applications?
Well, it was 100% real. As I said, 12 of them were live working applications.
What,
And
that they're
in our
currently live?
No, so it was transacting with real money. So
Okay.
it was pilot use cases, but some of them they transacted with real money to prove how it would work. In our specific use case with Staff Capital and Macropod, we use the AUDM for the settlement. The transactions ran on the Red Belly network, which is a KYC on entry layer 1 blockchain, and the tokenizer platform, which acted as the registry layer. Drew Bradford, which is the director at Macropod, purchased the first units in that tokenized fund. And also, we participated in another use case that it was Australia's first tokenized corporate bond transaction, where the bond was issued by Barrenjoey and JellyC purchased it. So we executed the end-to-end on chain with the real counterparties. And what is more important, we are already moving, or we are continuing moving from pilot to production. So we continue working with Tokenizer to build the funds infrastructure on the Red Belly network and the AUDM to tokenize the JellyC funds here in Australia, always aligning with the regulatory environment. Our main goal is to tokenize the registry of the first Australian fund as a first stage, and then go to a live secondary market where the units will be live trading 24/7, hopefully within the next month.
Okay, yeah, nice. So it's a project Acacia exploring like tokenizing funds, stablecoins, digital registrations, and settlement infrastructure. Where do you see the greatest opportunity? Is it in the asset itself or the infrastructure that's sitting behind the asset? Where do you see like going forward, like the biggest opportunity?
Well, from my perspective, the biggest opportunity is absolutely in the infrastructure, not just the asset. Tokenizing the asset is, of course, the starting point, but on its own, it's only a digital wrapper. Where the real value comes is everything that is sitting behind the asset. So that would be, in the case of a tokenized fund, the registry, the settlement layer, the onboarding and the compliance flow, and critically the money layer that would be used for the transaction. So I would say that building something like in that case, a tokenized fund unit, it's building the full stack. Not only the unit is already created, it's building like the infrastructure to make that happen.
Okay. So we're actually witnessing the modernisation of the financial market infrastructure rather than simply creating a digital version of existing assets.
Can I ask
Yeah.
a question, Sandra? What I would be interested, like, what's sitting behind the fund? So, what are you funding?
Sorry, like my
Like, what the like you have the fund and people buy into the fund basically, but what is it, like a digital investment fund, or is it like a property investment?
so yeah, it's a wholesale investment unit fund. So where the people can buy units in, like in that case, has to be a wholesale investor. So it's
Just
an
quickly,
yeah,
just quickly for the audience. Well, what is a wholesale investor as opposed to just an investor?
a wholesale investor needs to follow like certain requirements to be able to invest, like having certain amount. It's like it needs to invest like a big amount of money, so needs to have like either from the accountant like an authorization to invest in certain funds. Yeah, generally.
Gotcha. All right. So following next, we're going to be talking to Mike. Is Australia ready? The technology is moving quickly. Policy and regulations often move slowly, especially when it comes to government. From taxation to regulation perspective, is Australia ready for tokenised asset, digital money, and fractional ownership? Do you think we're ready for this, or we've still got some speed humps to get over?
Well, it's always my approach. You really like to hear the good news or the bad news?
Bad news, mate.
Right, bad news first. Okay. And that translate directly from Sandra as well. But first, can I have a question to Sandra before delivering the so-called bad news? Because
Sure, no worries. Take it away, guys. Don't worry
so
about me.
about the funds, right? What rights? I mean, if I am to buy a unit in the funds, what right do I have? Is it just economic rights, or do I have the sort of like the right of the shareholders to vote inside the fund as well?
It's the units of the fund itself. So you deposit the money, and the benefits are like divided off in the proportion of the investment.
So can I vote like the direction of the
No.
funds? Okay, just like economics benefits then.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. All right. Okay, so that translates to my sort of like bad news. Bad news is like right now the guidance for tax is still, you know, sort of like ongoing, and there's no sort of like official guideline yet. And when there's no guideline, you stand the risk of doing things wrongly and classifying things wrongly. Now, the good news is that I believe Australian government is already on the track, and is getting faster and faster. Project Acacia is the very good starting point, but then we also have ASIC releasing their 225. And most recently, I think in April, there was a the passing of the Corporation Amendment Digital Asset Framework Bill 2026, which has many good guidelines in terms of like how to define what is a digital token, what is a digital asset platform, so DAP, what is a token custody platform, so TCP. So I believe that is a very good starting point. So at least we got some sort of like guideline now to like sort of like follow, and they also define like concepts that is really related to tokenization, such as a what is in an underlying asset. So they already have that going on as well, and they also define what rights that can probably be sort of like tokenized. So for example, and I believe that the underlying asset can sort of like be possessed by either a person or by the platform on behalf of a person as well. So one very good thing here is that it is kind of implied that the tokens can be possessed. That's actually very big, because before that, and I'm not just speaking Australia, I'm speaking international law, there's been a lot of sort of like conflicts between whether the token, being intangible asset, can actually be possessed. Because if it's not we are not able to possess a token, then how are we recognize the transfer of right? What is the transfer timing? Can we actually use the blockchain as the proof for transfer of the possession of the tokens? All of those things. Luckily, though, we're starting to see guidelines and clarifications, and I do believe that taxation is going to be a next step, because we're all looking forward to to comply and to see whether there's any clarification and any guidelines so that we are not penalized, basically. So yeah, good news and bad news. There you go.
Yeah, nice, mate. Okay, just a follow-up question. If you could change one thing tomorrow that would accelerate adoption while maintaining investor protection, what would that be?
Just one thing?
Oh, you can do 2 or 3 if you want.
Okay. So if I can change the first thing I'm gonna change tomorrow is the sort of like the official recognition of the legal rights being able to be transferred by tokens. For example, right? Let's see if we want to sort of like tokenize real estate, and that's the far-fetched things I know. Now the tokens, we can sort of like saying to each other, this token represent the ownership of a house, but then the torrent system kind of like disagrees. And even if we sort of like transfer the tokens like through the blockchain, right, we still eventually have to do the sort of like all of the nuances of administration, all of the bureaucracy of like registering a change of Oh, okay. I was on mute. Rookie mistake. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
you're back. You're back. Was
Where
just
where
like
was I?
5
Where was I?
seconds. Yeah, you just finished the sentence and then you were.
Oh, okay.
We basically said just the transfer of the token should be automatically also lead to the transfer.
So
of-
there should be a direct link between how the token transfer the sort of like purported legal rights with the registry itself. That would be very useful for things like transfer token representing a house, and that's directly updated into the torrent system without going through like the process of like, okay, we sold the token, but then we still have to go to the registrar to sort of like apply for a change in title. That's going to be defeating the use of the token in the first place if the token wants to represent a legal ownership. Another thing is
similar to Dubai, basically, how it's possible in Dubai these days, right?
I was about to say that, yeah. And the PPSA as well, so the personal property securities, that can be like sort of like fast track as well if the personal property security register sort of like answer directly to the blockchain sort of like tokenization. If that can happen, everything will be faster. So that's the one thing that I like to change.
Nice. Okay. Or we can just work it out ourselves and not have government involved. All right. So moving on. So why real estate? I mean, a lot of things are getting tokenized and all sorts of stuff. So I'm going to throw this to Julia. When people discuss tokenization, real estate often is the first thing or first asset class that is mentioned. Why do you think that is?
Yes. So yeah, people often think automatically real estate because obviously it's one of the biggest asset classes out there. And it would make a lot of sense to make ownership accessible for everyone. Obviously, that's a dream because buying properties is becoming less and less possible for the majority of the people. And there's actually, especially also when we look into investment properties or commercial properties, for example, that's something that most people never going to own or never going to have access to because they just don't qualify that. So I think this is why real estate tokenization is a great opportunity because we have communities within buildings And we have communities outside of buildings, like cities and towns, and people want to belong, and cities should participate, and everyone should have the right to actually participate in this. But that is not given. Like, it's only the top, investment class, especially in Australia, who's actually able to own real estate. Even like, mortgages these days. I mean, it's just getting harder, and it's in the future, nobody's gonna, we're just gonna rent basically, and then you have, the top investment firms. So real estate can allow communities to actually keep their cities for them and not give them away to, overseas investors and stuff like that. Or keep purse and don't sell everything to Sydney, kind of. So that's one thing. At the same time, a lot of investors, investment funds, and so on, they're kind of like, oh, real estate is boring, because it's actually a very conservative investment. But at the same time, over the long time, it's a very stable and safe one. So there's these two. We have we also see that the big investment firms, they're literally investing into 60 cities around the world. This is where most of the real estate investment goes, which leaves basically thousands of markets around the world and communities around the world with investment funding gaps. So if we manage to actually open up real estate investments for retail, this is where we can really build solutions as well for our local communities, to provide, better housing opportunities as well, and keep it basically. So that's one thing. At the same time, real estate is actually one of the hardest assets to tokenize, because of all these regulations we have in the real world. So tokenizing a title, it's literally the hardest thing to do, or to make sense to do it. Even Dubai, they are also just piloting and testing, and they are seeing where the problems are. Because if you have, thousands of people who own a title and everyone has a say, then who's going to make the decisions? That's a big thing in real estate tokenization. So there's maybe the better system is that you have a central point of decision making and management and carrying the responsibilities, and then you have the investors who basically just participate in the economic of the properties, which is the revenues and the money it's generating. And that's pretty much also like where Blocksquare is mainly focusing on. So there's a lot of different ways to tokenize, have pros and cons. And this is where the entire market right now is figuring out which one is the best. Now, what we need to consider in real estate, and this is actually why it makes it a great asset to tokenize, that is, we have a title management system that is transparent in a lot of countries, not in all countries. In Australia, it's very digital. You can register things on the title, which means there's several ways how you can connect a token with the title registry and management, and secure and make sure that the property can be secured and cannot be sold without the knowledge and the approval of the token holders. That's very important. So there's a lot of real world assets where you have the disconnections between the tokens and the asset, and it's completely operating, running on trust. And in the direct asset tokenization of properties, there is ways outside the normal title tokenization. There is ways how we can use the already existing legals that land registers and the real estate and contract laws already provide. We can use that to stop the transfer of a property without the token holder's approval or buyback or payout. And that is very, very important. And that's something that an asset provides that is connected to a fixed location. So if we're talking about tokenization of wine or something like this, for example, how do you prove that this wine bottle is still full? Okay, now you have to use the other IoT technology, all of these kind of things. It really depends what asset you want to tokenize. Everyone has its own challenge. and the assets where we don't have this fixed, registry of location where the asset is these days, and it cannot be sold so easy. This is where you can make the tokenization more secure for the token investor and the protection of the investors. And once you have something that can change location very easy, this is where it's becoming actually much more difficult to tokenize or to make it safe, this tokenization. But at the same time, these are the kind of assets which kind of are less regulated and which are actually easier to tokenize these days, because just issue an NFT or something like this, and people just buy it and trust that this is like, there's so many different ways. So real estate is one of the hardest assets to tokenize, but at the same time, we can make it the safest one if we are using existing laws and regulations that are already around. But the regulator focus more these days on the wrappers instead of the direct asset tokenization. That's reality right now. We're tokenizing wrappers. This is why we need so many, laws and regulations for, you need your FSL license, you need this, you need that, because people need to trust you, because you literally don't tokenize real estate, you tokenize a wrapper. But if you tokenize directly the asset, the real estate asset, and use existing laws around it that has been around for many, many, many years, then you can make it secure without the trust.
Right, gotcha. Okay, well, what lessons can Australia learn from the markets that have already implemented, tokenizing real estate at scale? I mean, what can we sort of improve on or learn from, rather?
Yeah, I think what I find interesting is like some markets are basically like, okay, if you, maybe get started tokenizing small amounts and get started, or like Europe, for example, they created a really nice, with the separation between, the securities and the MiCA laws. So they created a split between those, and then they're basically saying, not only because this is tokenized, this is not automatically a security, or only because this is creating a return or revenue, it's not automatically a security, so they're looking really more into how is this protected? How is this safe for the investor? So if you manage, like we managed in Europe, for example, to get the to not to be seen as a security token. We are more of in the other token category, which is similar to a utility token. Why is that? Because we managed to create a legal system that allows you to trade or hold the tokens, but at the same time, the property cannot be sold. And if the property needs to settle, then the token buyback of the investors must happen. Otherwise, you cannot move. And there is nobody who needs to raise a claim or anything. It's automatically integrated in the land registration laws, notarized in the whole bit, basically. So because this protection exists there from the real world or real estate world already, this is why you then cannot, you don't need to use a security token or security protection, like a fund protection or something, because they differentiate that. And then, obviously, Dubai leading for the land title. Let's see, let's learn from them. Maybe that's something that's coming in the future. And let's see what we can build out here in the market. But there is Thailand, beautiful laws for retail. So they created the entire real tokenization laws, so retail can really access. Rather than Singapore made it more for institutions. Or institutional investments. So we have different markets around the world who have different, goals to achieve. Do they want to include the people, or do they want to include the banks and bring it in that way?
Yeah, I suppose that's what all people want to know is sort of, exposure. And I like the idea that, you can get into the real estate market and participate in it without actually having hundreds of thousands of dollars in a bank loan. And it's sort of almost a segue to, does tokenization actually improve access? And I'm going to throw this to Minnie. One of the biggest promises of tokenization is democratization and accessibility. but does tokenisation generally create new opportunities for investors and communities, or is it sort of just a nonsense?
I think it does, but it's potentially yes, big yes. I think we still need to be careful about what we mean by access. Tokenisation can allow people to participate at lower entry points, which is something that's really good. When we talk about the difference between a wholesale investor, which is somebody who earns over 250, has a base of section of assets that can support, meaning they don't need as much education typically because they're a sophisticated investor. And then we look at a retail investor, which is people, that are just generally on a normal wage, have a family, have a small amount of money. So yeah, that in terms particularly of real estate, that can help them access real estate tokenisation projects at smaller portions of money. So it can open up the access. I think important wrappers around that, though, are things like the suitability of the asset to the investor, because we're talking about tokenisation in general. So would a token in a fund be something that a retail investor wants? Well, it might be, but it might also be a little bit too complex and too left of centre for them to actually understand what they're investing in. That, again, if we break it down, it comes to education as well. There's a gap in education, probably suitability, the disclosure that's required to grant people access to this new form of how we access liquidity. And also understanding what rights the token give the buyer. It's a different situation to them sort of going and buying a share. They know they're going to buy a share. You have no access to anything else, but some people still have in their mind thinking about if I can access real estate. In other words, thinking, or maybe do I own that door if I have a token in that real estate, or do I own that bedroom? And it's not like that. The way that we're talking about tokenisation of assets is tokenising the economic benefit of the real estate asset. In other words, they have a share in the forward revenue of that property, and they get a share based on their holdings, much as what Sandra was talking about with the units. It's not that they own a portion of it, and it's not that they have any control over that asset. But yes, access is becoming more available. And the other thing is that Australia is very heavily invested in property. Property has always been in Australia something that is a dream. You not only want to have your own home, but as soon as you've got that, you're looking at maybe getting equity from your home to buy an investment property and things like that. It's a very understood asset. But we now have the opportunity to buy tokens in overseas properties, which is something we haven't had before. So we have this really opening up of everything. So we understand real estate in Australia, but we need to educate people about what that means in terms of tokenisation and what the token actually gives you. And in most cases, it's economic benefit. It's not ownership. So it does. I think it does change access.
Okay, what examples have you seen where tokenisation solves a problem that, say, the traditional market just can't?
Well, I think the clearest example is where tokenisation solves the infrastructure problems that we currently have. Like we talk about we're not reinventing the asset, but what we're doing is making that the asset accessible. And money markets, funds, treasury products, all that sort of tokenisation is fantastic on that infrastructure because it happens so quickly. We're talking about instant settlements. It's no middlemen involved in the operation of the smart contract. There still needs lawyers. We still need settlement agents and those sort of things. With real estate, it's a little bit different. Property is high value. It's illiquid. Administratively, it's heavy and difficult to fractionalise per se. But then I think tokenisation doesn't magically create a better asset. It just creates better access, better settlement, quicker 24/7 trading, all of those sort of things, and secondary trading markets. And this is what the liquidity that liquidity can be brought out. I think if we look at it from the property owner's perspective, the thing about that is that the property owner then is capital raising through tokenisation without having the hurdles of having to go to banks or multiple banks or second or third tier lenders with massive interest rates, can get the equity out of their property without losing control or ownership of that property. I think that's another big thing that we have to remember in terms of that, how we're going to implement this and how it's going to benefit everybody that we've actually got in this space.
Yeah, because like I said, I mean, Australia is traditionally very heavy invested in real estate. It's the great Australian dream type of thing, but it is a very illiquid product. So this sort of creates that sort of friction point, one might say. Okay, what will infrastructure, oh, thanks for that, Minnie, by the way. I haven't thanked everyone else when they have finished either, I just remembered. So thank you before and after hand. Okay, what will institutions need? This is going to Sandra. Institutional capital was often described as the next phase of tokenisation. What do institutions still need to see before they tokenise assets and become a sort of mainstream, a part of mainstream investment portfolios?
Well, in a case, I would say three things. First, the confidence in the money layer. That could be something like a stable coin with real depth and usability, where it's easy to transact efficiently, like an interbank equivalent pricing and access liquidity without any friction. Because otherwise, the tokenized asset can exist, but that would make it difficult to scale. And basically, the settlement layer is what makes the system usable. Then I would say the regulatory certainty, like the regulation that just came in with Royal Essen in April, that is the Corporations Amendment Framework for Digital Assets. This one being fully enacted, because that will properly regulate digital custody providers, define how the tokenized assets are treated under financial services law, and bring the stablecoin issuers into a trusted, supervised framework, because institutions otherwise won't allocate capital at scale until this certainty is in place. And third, I would say the institutional grade protections like insurance, because holding these tokenized assets needs to be somehow secure, insurable, and commercially competitive with the traditional custody. If the risk framework is not equivalent or even better, the institutions won't move. And that is what we are seeing now, particularly through the RWA sandbox work, where institutions want to actively test those environments. What this sandbox brings is effectively setting the benchmark for custody standards, for governance, and how the tokenized market infrastructure should operate. And if that evolves into something like the tokenized Commonwealth government bonds, that will be the trigger point for broader institutional adoption.
Right, yep, I see. Yes, it's you know, sort of regulation barrier, or is it liquidity missing? You know, there's a lot of sort of moving parts at the moment, but we are progressing. And that sort of brings into the liquidity question. I'm going to throw this to you, Minnie. Every tokenization conference talks about liquidity, yet many tokenized assets still trade very infrequently. Why is this why is the liquidity proving so difficult to solve at the moment?
Well, I think we're focusing a lot on the infrastructure that we need for all these tokenization projects to run. We're focusing on how the assets will be tokenized. One of the missing pieces is the marketing and the buyers of these tokens. Now, if we're talking about retail investors, particularly, even sophisticated investors, they need to know these things exist. They need trust. They need to be able to ask questions and get solid answers. They need regulatory assurance that these things are safe. But a key component, probably the beginning component, is to make sure, well, it's probably not the beginning, but it is the most essential part of it, is to make sure that if you're tokenizing a project, You have the marketing team and the marketing materials behind you to get to the people who are your intended buyers. It's almost like launching any product. If you don't have a buyer for that product, you're not going to get any sort of sales, and sales is liquidity. So it's great to say that we can tokenize properties, we can tokenize assets of any sort, funds, etc. But we need people to buy and be interested in it. Education, marketing, education, trust, and transparency, I think, are the things that will be our core pillars for us to expand what we've already got into something that trades in seconds on the secondary market. And then the high value assets, is particularly real estate, will trade consistently because people want a piece of that. They know they're going to get the money, they understand it, etc., etc. That would be my take.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. It's it's technology. Like it's the thing is, does the technology create liquidity, or does liquidity come from investments and when institutions arrive? But when you're talking about education, it's like you can have the best product in the world, but if nobody knows about it, then you don't have the exposure. So I suppose that would be a main barrier with that. So Mike has put up his hand. Oh, yep, there you go.
Yes, I just like to echo the importance of education, because first we need to sort of like make people know, like Millie said, these things exist. Second, how it works, and with education will translate into trust, and trust is very important for investors to sort of like getting into a new investment, and to support the trust. This is also what I was putting up as legal framework supports. So we need those guidelines in order to like properly educate. So the presence of at least the recently Ascent Act, I think is a very good first step, because now there's official sort of like definition of things that we can only guess before. So that should be a very good baseline for education, and from education, trust, and from trust, scalability, investment.
Yeah, it's almost like the chicken and the egg. Okay, so fast forwarding, we're going to do a time warp now to 2030. Donald Trump is still in power. The world is still at war and losing its mind. It's 2030. So Yasik, let's imagine we're having this conversation in 2030. What do you think success looks like?
I think, I will refer to what Minnie said, and sorry if I will shock you. I just like clear, precise, simple answers, no gossiping. The tokenization is good. The market should be ready. I will repeat, should be ready. For some reason, it's still not ready. I think if we have technology ready, so why the market is not ready? Sometimes I think maybe the big people with big money, they don't know what they want now. And that's the reason it's still not ready. But that's my personal view. I think in 2030, so it's still few years, the market will be ready. And Australia, because we are in Australia, will not talk about blockchain tokens. They will just notice faster settlement, easier access to investments, smaller entry amounts to access property because of this fragmentation, and they will be able to manage to buy, afford. More transparent ownership records because of blockchain, and I like blockchain and always will promote this. And better capital access for businesses. The capital can have funds a little bit easier, as well. So in my opinion, this tokenization success in few years from now will be the catchword, the slogan, or the, I don't like this word, buzzword. Just people will experience better financial market, will be easier and more trustworthy. That's all how I see this. Maybe I'm a little bit futuristic, but I think we are already ready. But that's me. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, we've got a generations that's ingrained, and it's pretty hard for like financial advisors or people that run funds or whatever to go out of the box and to do something that they haven't done for the last 40 or
Yeah,
50.
I will
50 years.
mention one more thing. I remember the power ledger meeting in Perth many years ago. I was invited in West Tech Fest. It was the first talk in this building where the power ledger got office. I think Julia was over there working as well. Well, but I remember the lady said, I asked, why is this blockchain still not working, producing for everyone? And she said, because people don't know what they want. The big people still not sure what they want. So I think maybe this is one of the gap, or I don't know, that you said slowing bump. They should know what they want, and maybe there will be green light and market will be ready. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, because that was the theme, like, oh, everything's going to be on the blockchain. A lot of things don't need to be on the blockchain.
Okay.
It's all what people need. All right, we're going to go into a lightning round, one sentence only. That's going to be hard for Julia. What asset class will see the greatest impact from tokenization over the next decade? I'm going to start with Mike.
Real world ones, preferably tangible ones, real estate. That's gonna be my guess.
All right, fantastic. Julia?
100% real estate.
Sandra?
I would say the private equity.
Okay, nice. Karoline?
You're on
You're
mute.
on.
You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Thanks.
One job.
I'd say property, so real estate as well as intellectual property.
Minnie?
I think everything of value is going on digital rails. So everything of value will be there. Now, real estate may be the biggest, but I think the financial markets will be of equal value because all financial markets, it makes sense to have them on definitely on digital rails.
Yep, 100%. Yasik?
I think maybe the development, like I was writing article about, and maybe that. Who knows?
Okay, Mike, you put up your hand.
Can I add another 20 years and change my answer a little bit?
So what, 2050?
Yeah. Pure virtual digital properties.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so you
Wait,
can walk
what's
around
that?
and
10 years gonna be real estate. But 2050 it might be, pure creation of the mind. So say saying digital artwork, purely digital. Yep. Or digital items. Maybe digital internal decorations. You push a button and then your room is automatically decorated the way that you like.
Excellent. That doesn't sound Orwellian at all.
Isn't that what
For me, this
IKEA
is
is
part
already
of the
doing?
metaverse. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, but
Metaverse is in use.
it
Yeah,
might become more
Decentraland.
popular. It's already being done, but it might become more popular. That's gonna be my guess.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in Miami to tokenized, the tokenized units in Miami, and they had this real estate investor event. So went there, and it was absolutely amazing. And it was for development that wasn't ready yet. So they just had the, VR classes there, and we literally went on a tour. I went to a pool party. I had a swim. I had a shower in my apartment. I did the whole lot. I was dancing with people, and I was there. I was like living it. And then I took the glasses off, and it was so much fun. And then, they just showed me, the model. This is what they're building. And then they did a 30-minute session about what's tokenization. And the next moment, you could just scan the QR code and buy tokens in your apartment in there. That's how you sell tokenized real estate. You sell it they were selling the rest of the units like traditionally, but the room was full of real estate people, of real estate agents. And what they were saying in the talk, they were like, why are you inviting us why are you telling us about, the whole tokenization and crypto and so on? We are traditional real estate people, agents. And they were saying, you know what? you need to understand what is Bitcoin. You need to understand how these investors are thinking, because these people, they're making money from Bitcoin and then they want to buy real estate. So now is the time where you start to build your communities. Now is the time where you start engaging and actually make these networks to these people, because when they're ready to sell out of crypto, they're going to put it into real estate. And you're going to be the one who's going to have several products. You're going to be, here's a, apartment, here's a house. Oh, you don't have that much? Okay, here's like 50 different apartments. You can just chug in $10,000 each, for example. You don't need to put everything into one property. That's the message. Like, they made it. It was such a fantastic event. And that was when 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and it was just done perfectly. And I think the real estate industry, once they start really getting into this and start thinking new products, new add-ons they're putting, they can add to the existing listings they have right now, which are not many in Perth. Imagine you can add this, completely new layer for them of transactions they can add to what they are able to do right now. Then their entire profile and revenues is changing as well. But for me, this is going to be the industry in real estate that we need to get on board, because they are the ones who have all the trusted investors already. And they're just going to start, building new relationships and teaching their people the new things.
So I'll just give my little 2 cents what I think where we'll be in 2030 or whatever, chasing that up is it's kind of the tokenization of the New York Stock Exchange that they're talking about at the moment. You know what I mean? So to be traded 24 hours a day, there won't be an opening and closing bell, which is going to hold up a whole different sort of liquidity. I like the idea of pre-investing into like estates or high rises or apartment buildings that are yet to be built. You know what I mean? So you can be a pre-investor. I think that's got a lot of legs on it.
Tokenizing development, yeah.
Yeah, development, 100%. I'm very, very bullish on that. But I'm also very interested. I've had this conversation with Julia and Minnie a few times about the tokenization of things like vineyards and mine sites and and stuff like that. You know what I mean? There's just anything that has real life value can have the liquidity, but also the no friction between buying or selling or getting involved in it, whether you're a small investor or a large investor. Okay, well, that's about it for us tonight. We've come in 3 minutes late on time. That's pretty good for us. All right, so we'll leave it at that. Anyone want to finish off anything last? Sorry, put all your details if you want in the chat. Well, this is also going to go out on the podcast. And all the links for everybody will be in the description as well. But if you guys want to know or connect with anybody, a good place to go to is orangebrickroad.com.au. You can book a free 15-minute call with me, no matter if you want to talk to one of the speakers here tonight, I can hook you up with them and we can continue the conversation from there. So without further ado, that's us. Cheerio.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Brandon.
everyone. Thanks,
so
Brandon.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brennan.
Amazing hosting as always.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank you.
mate.
Right, thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Signing off.
Bye.
Let's talk real estate, tokenization. Real world